to 500 Open Tabs. I'm Hannah Hillam.
And I'm Kaveh Taherian. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing, Hannah?
Weirdly good. Again.
Really?
Yeah. I went camping.
That's strange.
I went camping.
Yeah, that sounds nice. How was your camping?
I found a frog. It was fine.
That's cool. I like frogs.
It was by the beach.
Camping's always fine.
Although there was a foghorn. There was a foghorn in the background that went off all night.
Foghorn, leghorn?
Yeah, it was him.
He's like, I know you're trying to sleep in your sleeping bag.
But I think that, exactly. He talked all night. No, there was a foghorn that just went literally every 30 seconds for 24 hours. So I'm not insane. But...
Great. And you've had a very productive week. You've been texting me a lot about how excited you are about whatever this tab is that you're going to do today. Yeah. So I'm excited to finally know what the shit that even is.
Well, hang on. How are you? You can't just move past. You asked me.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
I'm fine. I was going to say I'm doing well. I'm really excited about our YouTube channel that people should subscribe to because we do video. Yeah.
YouTube.
Yes. If you're listening to this, continue listening to it, but also you can watch it because you can see the weird faces we make at each other and also the images we put up on screen. Long story short, we mentioned this before, but we have a YouTube. Yeah. We're trying to reach a higher number of subscribers. So please
greatly appreciated. So if you have a YouTube account, go subscribe.
But that's basically the only thing that's interesting in my life. Otherwise,
the YouTube account is the only thing that's interesting. Oh,
nothing else.
Yeah.
And of course, we're getting ready for New York. By the time this comes out, we're only going to be a couple of weeks from New York Comic Con, which we will be there.
And I'll only be 2 weeks away from my book launch. So
lots happening, lots going on.
Cat people.
Which also we should probably mention at the top now is that in the coming weeks we will have some fun guests on the show because Hannah is going to be too cool for us. Yeah, she's abandoning us for a book tour for a couple of weeks. So we're going to have some fun people fill in. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears...
Peeled?
Peel
your ears.
Uncorked?
Uncorked. Keep your ears uncorked for the special guests. I like the idea that everyone's ears are corked.
All the time. I mean, default. With headphones. Yeah, but with headphones, that's usually what it is. Remove the headphones.
So you can hear in the distance that my book is out. Or that there's, sorry, I'm talking about my book. I meant
guests that are replacing you.
It's fine. I can't be replaced.
No, not at all. Anyway, that's all the updates we have. Yeah. Why don't we get into it? I'm curious, what do you got for us? I know that I should have gone first, but for reasons that will become obvious, I'm not going to go first this week. Because first is the worst, as we used to say on the playground.
Absolutely. And it's going to be. So get ready.
Great. Perfect.
I shouldn't have hyped you up. Just put your expectations like down here.
Oh, now you're all stressed out. Now
I'm like, of course I am.
You said...
Why wouldn't I be? You're like, oh, Hannah's been talking about this all week. Yeah. And I'm like, oh no.
Literally because of the words that you said to me, which is, I think this is my favorite tab I'm ever going to do. So no pressure.
All right. So I got to set the scene, right?
Okay.
Before I can tell you the article.
Okay.
It is the early 1990s and we are in...
Already love it.
Here's the thing about this story is that it's fraught, but it's real cool. And it's the early 1990s, and it is the height of the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Balkan conflict, if you know anything about it, it's deeply depressing and complex and layered and can be looked at through many lenses of economy, economic, ethnic, religious, and regional. And the extremely watered-down version is that the Balkan region has always been the meeting place of multiple religions and cultures and empires. And historically, nationalism wasn't really a thing. And they not until the 20th century when everyone started getting into, nationalism. Yeah. Our favorite, our least favorite people on earth, the Nazis.
Wow, Hannah Hillam on the record talking about her favorite nationalists.
Yikes. I should say... the most infamous being the Nazis. They always make an appearance.
Always by you, by the way. I
just don't think that's true.
That's a lie. I have definitely
bring them up multiple times. Every story's tinged with Nazism, all right? Listen,
they touched everything. In the 20th century. What are we supposed to do?
Not talk about them?
They existed. I'm sorry.
They're so boring. Anyway.
They really are.
Okay, I don't want to talk about these guys anymore. Anyway, we're not going to this time. So Good. There were multiple different ethnic groups and religion. So there was a lot of Croatians who were Muslim and Christian and Orthodox. Mm-hmm. There were Serbians who were Christian and Orthodox, and then the Bosnians were majority Muslim. And that was left over from the Ottoman Empire. And after World War I, these ethnic groups started being like, we want our own countries, and decided to kind of break off into these separate countries. Croatia? Dude, no.
This is also, of course, because the Ottoman Empire itself collapsed,
yes. The Ottoman Empire collapsed. This is around the time when almost every empire is kind of, in the classical sense of empire, is collapsing. Like the British monarchy, the Britain is like, everyone's declaring independence. Anyway, so...
The Qing dynasty in China as well.
Japan, too. Yeah, it's kind of this crazy worldwide phenomenon that, monarchs and empires like that are kind of falling. So
thumbs down.
Yeah. But then, so now there are a few different countries, and then World War II rolls around. As it rolls around, it sounds so casual. After World War II, everything fell apart again. They were kind of in like shambles again. Hence, everyone was, and they united under a one name, which was Yugoslavia. And Yugoslavia existed until the fall of communism. And this brought about the fall of many communist countries in the late 80s, early 90s. And nationalism again took hold. And what was formerly Serbia, they all freaked out and they were like, no, we got to stay as a country. Please, let's not do this. And they were also like the more violent of them all. And then Croatia declared independence. And then this other countries declared independence. And then finally a group called the Bosniak, they declared independence in 1992. And they were the majority Muslim, and they also considered themselves Croatian and sometimes Serbian. So that's the thing with the Bosnians. They are a ethnic religious group who are divided between the Serbians and the Croats, which makes it like this giant, like, tinderbox.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know how to untangle it necessarily.
No.
Like, where do your taxes go?
Right. Who? Yeah, exactly. But the Bosnians were like, well, we were kind of here, like, this was like our homeland, so I think maybe we should. Yeah. Anyway, so they invade Sarajevo and then declare, what's the word? Independence.
War?
Independence.
Sorry.
And the rest of the world was like, whoa, guys, hold up. Let's chill. And they like, did not hold up. The Serbians were like, don't worry, we got this. And they proceeded to systematically and ethnically cleanse the Bosnians over the next 3 years. So if you want to be deeply depressed, you can go read about it, but we're not going to get into the genocide of this. And I'm sure I barely scraped the surface, and it's just way more complex. That is all to say, all of this conflict resulted in a new sort of modern siege warfare that we hadn't really seen before, which was people were trapped inside cities, unable to move from building to building because there were snipers everywhere. And so
this is sounding
sounds a little bit familiar.
Yeah.
It's not happening now. Snipers everywhere, so leaving your house meant you could possibly be shot in the street or
death,
step on a landmine, and it happened all the time. And people would often be pushed to limits, eating dog food or drinking dirty water, which led to illness and death. It was horrible. Like, it was horrible. And it was fully documented because everyone had video cameras now, camcorders that they could easily access. And anyway, medical aid wasn't available, and neither was food, because the Serbs or bandits would bomb or destroy or intercept any humanitarian aid. And the humanitarian aid that did get through was very sparse. So, for example, to tell you how bad this was, the siege of Sarajevo lasted for 3 straight years. So there were people in that city from day one for 3 straight years. And it was 3 times longer than the Battle of Stalingrad in World War II. And it was bad. So what resulted was an actual war on civilians and children, because that's what it was. It was civilians, and they all had to learn how to live in the shadows and survive. So that's the backstory. Sad. Okay. But don't worry, I'm about to pick it up a little bit, okay?
Okay, good.
So let's say you're in Sarajevo, okay? And you've run out of food. And you could risk going to find something, but you would be risking death. And you decide, well, maybe it's just a way for humanitarian aid, but no, they were bombed. They were destroyed.
Yeah.
And you can see snipers on roofs. You can hear distant gunfire. You can see military outposts. You can see, like, almost like people forming their own, like, military units to, like, protect themselves. And
yeah,
you are in some bombed out house, right? Trying to find shelter. And you're starting to lose hope, right? And then suddenly you hear a faint sound of an engine from the back streets. And with a whoosh, almost like a whisper, a 1979 dark gray Camaro rushes into view. All right?
Okay.
And you're like, what is this Camaro doing here? You run inside, lock the door, tell everyone to get down. You don't know who it is.
Yeah.
But no gunshots come. No one bangs down the door. Instead, you hear a man with a Danish accent announce that he's from the American military and he has supplies. So you open the door and you see this dude, kind of stocky army man, wearing studded leather gloves, night vision goggles, a Kevlar helmet, a flak jacket, with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Okay?
Yes. Love it.
And he takes the cigarette out of his mouth and he's like, my name's Helge, and I have tons of supplies for you.
Sorry, just need to go ahead and buy the rights to this story right now.
Too late.
I'm typing. I was like, this is fodder.
Helge, I think Helge sold the rights to this like 2 years ago.
Okay.
I couldn't understand his broken English on Facebook, but I think because you bet I went and stalked Helge. He's alive. Yeah. Then Helge is like, well, I'm going to bring the stuff in. And he changes into civilian clothes because he sees there's children in there. And he's like, well, I don't want to scare the children.
Yeah.
And so out of the back seat of his Camaro and the trunk, he starts unloading hundreds of pounds of food, water, blankets, sanitary supplies, diapers, Lego, straight up Lego. This dude, Danish dude, comes in with Lego for the kids because he got them to donate
National treasure.
Seriously. Right? Danish national treasure. And,
he's an ambassador.
Right. And he brings extra, clothing, anything people could need. Medicine, most importantly. And he sticks around and he plays with the kids. And then he gets back into his Camaro and he drives into the night. And
Dude, sounds like literally Santa Claus.
I was just about to get to this part where I call him a post-apocalyptic Santa Claus, all right? Because as he drives away, you hear gunshots from snipers because, dude, these snipers know about this guy. And they have spent the last couple years trying to kill him. And but the sniper bullets bounce off the car because guess what? That car is fully armored.
Nice.
And the armor plating that he installed is helping him a lot. And Helge then pushes the nitrous button and the car peels out at 400 miles, not 400 miles, at 400 horsepower down the dark back roads of Sarajevo.
It's literally like a Fast and the Furious movie or something now.
But like,
hit the nitro. Boom.
I'm obsessed with Helge Meyer. This man. So all of that leads to me telling you the story of the Ghost Camaro and God's Rambo. Or I like to call him the man with the biggest balls in the Balkans. So, Helge Meyer.
Hold on. Do you plan on showing me any pictures of him?
Shoot, I got so excited. Hold on. I got to send you some pictures.
I'm so excited to see what this man looks like in his car.
I'm obsessed with this dude. Okay, here is
the biggest balls in the Balkans.
The biggest balls in the Balkans. I'm going to send you a couple pictures of this Camaro. And there's Helge with his cigarettes, with his
Oh God, he looks exactly what I thought he would look like.
Yep.
Whoa.
Isn't he cool?
Yes.
That's all of his gear.
And the Camaro, of course, has that intake on the front. This just looks like a Batman version of a Camaro, basically.
But like an Eastern European war-torn Camaro. Like it looks
This is legitimately awesome as shit.
I'm obsessed with Helge.
And it's all tinted black.
This is
so awesome. Why does Hot Wheels not make a version of this?
Here's the thing. I dug around. This story is not places. Like I couldn't find it in any news sources. I found his accounts of it, a book that he wrote in Danish, and a bunch of car blogs that like love cars. We'll talk about it.
Sick.
I know. Okay.
All right. So
Go
ahead. Sorry, I just really wanted to see what it looked like.
Biggest balls in the Balkans. So Helge Meyer is a Danish special operations soldier who had fought alongside American Green Berets and had been trained by other special forces. He was in the Jaeger Corps, which was the Danish Green Berets, pretty much. He was a paratrooper, and one of his favorite pastimes was what he called his psychological walks, which meant he would go on 100-mile treks and make it as hard as possible for himself.
This reminds me of my cousin Arya that we hung out with in New York, where he was like, I need to walk 20 miles today around the entire island for fun.
Arya was like, I walked 20 miles today. I'm like, why? He walked from Manhattan to Brooklyn to up to Harlem. Like, I don't know. I don't get him. That was my first impression of Arya. He was like, I've walked 19.5 miles. I got to get to 20. I was like, okay. And then we helped him finish.
Yes. And then we all had pizza afterwards.
So everybody,
shout out to Zillions.
It's delicious.
We ate it like every day.
If everyone wants to know if genetics are real, they are, because I met Kaveh and multiples of his cousins who are all very similar.
We're all crazy.
I love it. So Helge,
100-mile. How often would he do these 100-mile treks?
A lot. And he would train other soldiers, and they would always describe him as like this quiet, like feelingless man who was like, oh, if you fail, you fail. Go find the base yourself. I'm not taking you back. Like stuff like that.
Okay.
Hardcore. Learned how to survive. And also became very familiar with the Balkans because he would go walking around there. So he knew the cities. Just
like on foot, like you said. He's literally walking 100 miles a day. He probably knows all of it.
He knows, and he knows the
every nook
climate. He knows the culture. He knows. And a lot of people came out of that saying, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And that guy was crazy. So each person had 20 cigarettes, 1 liter of water, and had to make
cigarettes are important. It's an important part of getting through it.
This guy is a chain smoker, which just makes it all better.
Of course he's chain smoking the entire time.
And nobody was allowed to talk.
Sounds like the Ron Swanson of the military.
He's the Danish Ron Swanson, but like way cooler. So he would go these silent psychological walks. Anyway, so that was one of his pastimes.
Listen, this is one step removed from like a Buddhist retreat where you don't talk for 30 days, but you're just walking for 100 miles.
Through the Balkans.
You take out the chain smoking, it's basically the same thing.
Dude, I bet Buddhist monks chain smoke.
I don't know if you're allowed to on the retreat. I'm not sure. Again, I have no idea. I don't know if like chain smoking is part of it. I know you have to like help prepare food and stuff, but I don't think that chain smoking is usually part of it.
Boring. What's that Nigel Farage video? Boring. Boring.
I hate that guy.
I hate him so much. What a piece of crap.
Shit.
When the Balkan conflict started, Helge was like, it got in his head. He was like, nothing's happening. No one can get in these cities. The world is just watching. I couldn't handle the idea of all these children and families just like starving to death. And he was like, I have to do something. And more importantly, God has called me to do it. And it's why he got the nickname God's Rambo, because he's pretty much God's Rambo. And he was like, okay, I have to figure out a way to get in there and get supplies because nothing's working. So he goes to the European forces and he's like, I have an idea. And they're like, absolutely not. No. We're not helping you.
I got this Camaro.
Yeah, no, really. And then he goes,
you ever seen Batman? We're going to do that shit.
We're going to do that, but it's going to be way more smoke filled.
Yeah. I was going to say way more chain smoking.
There's going to be smoking indoor and outdoor and all the time.
I need to make sure I got a cigarette lighter in this car. The rest of it is negotiable.
It's negotiable, but I can't not have a cigarette. Here's the thing. There's a good chance. This guy's very active on the internet. So if you're listening to this, Helge, I have the utmost respect for you.
Please come be a guest on our show. We would love to hear your stories.
Dude. How is nobody... Anyway. Okay, so he'd been trained by the Green Berets, and so he knew guerrilla warfare. He was a paratrooper. He could easily get into the cities, and he had a specific knowledge of the back streets of Sarajevo. And he figured, with all that knowledge, he could help. Not only did he know he could help, but again, he was like, God is telling me to do it. So
I'm sent. Yeah.
He goes to, and then the Europeans said no. So that he goes to a humanitarian group, and they're like, no, we also don't know how you're going to do this. And finally, you know who you talk to next?
The Americans?
The US of A.
Yeah.
And they did not hesitate to say, yes, absolutely. You're a lunatic, but so are we.
You son of a bitch, we're in.
Exactly. So it was a resounding yes. Like, the soldiers, so they couldn't officially be like, hey, the U.S. military is backing you, because that would create,
of course,
some, not humanitarian, but like political issues. And so,
sorry, real quick, this is 93 at this point?
Around 93. He did this all through the war, so this is decidedly during the Clinton administration at this point, if I remember correctly. Yeah. 92 to 2000, yeah. Is it Madeleine Albright is the Secretary of State? I think, that sounds familiar.
Okay. I'm just trying to remember, like, who's in charge of
who the
what
players
here at this point. Yeah, who are the players here? Okay.
Anyway, so the soldiers themselves independently raised $12,000 worth of supplies. And one of them
before Kickstarter. How the shit do you even do that? They're not even, like, putting it up on the internet. They're like, they go door to door.
They're like, hey, can you... Anyway, they had that, right? And then they're like, well, what car are you going to use? Because you can't, like, run around in there. And he's like, I'm going to use a Camaro. A 1979 Camaro, that one. And some soldier had it or something. He somehow obtained it from the U.S. military, and he got to work. So first, I'm going to tell you.
Is there any explanation about what his reasoning was for the Camaro as opposed to like a Land Rover or something?
I think he just liked it.
Yeah.
They're very fast and small and sleek, and most importantly, American.
Yeah, tough.
Actually, I don't know if they are. I don't know anything about cars. I'm car blind. So first, he modified the stock engine with nitrous oxide, and he brought the horsepower up from 170 to 440. So
yes,
yeah. Then he attached Kevlar sheets to the back window and doors. He removed the indoor dome lighting. He painted the entire inside of the car black. He removed added a plow blade, an iron plow blade, in the front of the car so that he could clear debris as he drove.
I'm curious as to do you know why he would paint the entire inside of it black? Is it just so that he can't be identified, or like what is
it's just to blend in. Like, if you think about it, something could glint off of light, and because his whole thing was like,
that's a good point. Yeah,
he wanted to.
But it's a Camaro. They're gonna hear this giant ass like.
I'll get
engine.
there.
Okay.
So. He did do something with the engine to make it quieter. And
he did. Okay.
Also the tires. So the tires are these special kind of tires that were like filled with like I can't remember what they're called, air flat tires or something, but they're quieter. And so he was able to figure out a way for it to only really be loud when he did the nitrous.
The nitrous, okay.
That was to just get out of sticky situations.
Yeah.
You know. So he I love him. I love this man. And then he painted it infrared matte black, the same paint they use for stealth aircraft, so that it couldn't be picked up on radar or thermal scopes. So
amazing.
That's why they called it the Ghost Camaro, because wasn't.
What a great name for a car,
right? So good.
Ghost. I'm gonna call my car the Ghost Camaro, even though it's not painted black, or is it a Camaro?
He then added a military...
The Ghost Matrix. Actually, that's a very cool name, too.
That is. Is that you drive a Matrix? That's awesome.
You have a Toyota Matrix. Yeah,
you know
Ghost
what?
Matrix.
There is a conflict going on right now, and you do have a car.
That's true. I'm going to come in with the Toyota Matrix.
Yeah.
All 4 cylinders and 1.8 liters. It won't go fast, but it's gas efficient. And it's got a hatchback.
Immediately murdered. Immediately killed.
Dead. Immediately killed.
So then he installed a military GPS system, a fire suppression system, a thermal detector so he could see where people were in buildings.
This is just literally Batman. This is literally the Batmobile.
Yes. He also did a ground-to-air radio to be able to communicate with aircraft. And finally, the last touch was a rubber ducky on the grill, because he wanted it to have... Nope, it was yellow!
Oh, okay. All right. I love it. The one pop of color.
The one pop of color. And next he needed armor, because he wasn't about to... Here's the thing about Helge. He didn't have any weapons. He went in with a Bible and a military knife, and that was it.
So he was pre-religious, it sounds like.
Yes.
Going in with the Bible, like loving, like seeing like I'm sent by God.
Yeah. I'm sent by God to do his work in this area, but really hardcore. So he only brought a knife.
Doesn't sound wrong to me necessarily in terms of like what you should be doing in terms of like what the spirit, the good spirit of religion is
whatever
to help
works,
people so that they don't get killed.
It feels specifically Christian, like as what it should be. Like,
I was like, that feels like something Jesus would have signed off on. Yeah.
Oh, I think Jesus would have ripped in there on that Camaro.
Yeah, just ridden with him.
Jesus would have been right next to him, being like, "We're doing this."
Chain smoking.
Chain smoking with him. Just toss it, multiplying all the fish and loaves for everybody.
Yeah.
Wearing studded leather gloves. Just a knife and a Bible. And that's why they, called him Rambo, or what was it? God's Rambo.
Love it. God's Rambo,
in German, I think it's Gott Rambo or something.
Gott Rambo. Also a cool name.
He had an army-issued knife, and he considered his faith and his dedication to this enough. And he also didn't believe in murdering anybody, because that was, which is interesting, because he is a soldier. He brought basic tools.
Well, maybe it's because he's a soldier that he doesn't like murdering. He's like, I had to do enough of it, and I don't want to do that anymore.
I could easily see that.
Yeah.
So he had basic tools like an axe, fire starter, etc., but no real weapons. And he was like, well, I got to protect myself. So he got himself a Kevlar helmet, a bulletproof vest and flak jacket, studded gloves, and pretty much just dressed himself like a hardcore biker wearing Kevlar. He, over the next few years, Helge completed over 100 missions on his own by himself with the help of the supplies from the U.S. Army. In daytime and nighttime. So he started being like, okay, nighttime's not enough. I'm just going to go during the day when everyone can see me. And giving away literal... Oh,
I see. Yeah. This makes sense why everything would have been black then.
He was only doing it at night.
Working at nighttime missions. Okay.
And
yes, that makes much more sense.
He had... The car was so good at... Like, he could easily, like, pull into the city, get into the city, and hide the car in the rubble and make it look like it blended in. It was small, compact, and then he was able to, go house to house or whatever. Like you said, a post-apocalyptic Santa Claus / Mother Teresa, who's actually nice. I don't know. He was shot at, chased, never captured. After a while, everyone knew about him, including the soldiers, and they were like, the guy in the Camaro? Kill him!
Thorn in our side.
3 years, not a single shot hit him.
That's awesome.
I know. One went over his helmet and like skimmed it. And then one time he had to like dodge an explosion, but he did.
Just dodge an explosion.
Yeah. There was pretty much an open warrant to kill him on sight. He even worked after the war was over. So he did this all through the war and he ended up helping rebuild the city and help bring supplies still into it. He did not stop. Dude, this car is so cool.
Yeah, it really is.
And the man's cool too, but I'm obsessed with the car. Anyway, he's still alive.
By the way, if you're, don't forget, we are on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, you can watch this.
You
on
need
YouTube.
to. I was about to say,
you can see this car and all this stuff. It just literally looks like.
You got to look at these pictures I'm about to put up because here's him handing toys out to children in the daytime.
Yes.
Yeah, and then here he is. I think after the war. I'm gonna send you a couple.
Yeah, I think it's funny that he's not in that photo. They're just kids like looking in his trunk.
Yeah, they're all getting stuff out of his trunk.
It looks like he's by the Mystery Mobile.
Yeah, he does.
He's like parked in front of the Mystery Mobile in the first one. It's covered in dirt.
Oh, it's very dirty. But you can totally see like, this one doesn't have the like the iron.
Oh, there's the
plow.
one where it's in snow.
Yeah, so he did like it was snowy sometimes. He did this year round.
This thing should be like at the Peterson Museum.
I
in
know,
LA, like
right?
The car museum. I feel like it would be really cool.
It's in his garage.
This in real life.
He still has it.
He should donate it, especially if he did it like on behest of the Americans. The Americans would be inspired if they see it.
Dude, I would love to see this car in person. But nowadays, even after the war was over, he still helped, and he called his car his trusty warhorse, which I think is metal and awesome. Yeah. And nowadays he lives in Germany. He's in his 70s. He got married, and his wife hates his car. She's like, you're obsessed with it. She's like, I'm sick of this car. Why is it taking up space in our garage? And he's like, I'll never get rid of it.
I was like, who is this wife that doesn't appreciate this?
Yeah, I'm sorry, lady. No offense, but, But maybe have some
not
respect
one to judge your
for
marriage,
the car.
but yeah, exactly. The car that saved all these kids,
like newborn babies, got food to them. Anyway, and he recently painted the car bright orange.
Of course he did.
What? So I'm gonna send you a picture of him posing in front of his bright orange Camaro now.
No.
Yeah, everyone was
scared.
like, "Why'd you do this, dude?" And there have been like. He's been kind of like, people have been like, well, he's kind of playing up his story a lot, but...
No, he's defaced a
he
national
defaced
monument.
It, yeah. But look at him.
He's wearing the gloves, though, which I like. He looks like a Mad Max character.
He really
that, like,
does.
Especially when it's orange and he's wearing the studded gloves and he's got his sunglasses on.
If you want to see
looks
it,
like
go
he's
to
all,
YouTube.
hey there, Max.
Hey.
Furiosa.
So when the war... Exactly. When the war broke out in Ukraine a few years ago, he was like, I got to do it again.
I'm back.
And his wife was like, no.
No, you're 70 years old.
Yeah, you're 75. You're not doing this again. And he was like, you're right. But he said if he could pull it off, he would. And I want to end on this quote of his that I thought was really great. He says, I want to tell you that it is useful to do something, even if you're alone and the circumstances are fatal, and you don't have to drive a Camaro into a war zone filled with medicine and toys for children. I could do that because I had the military training and my special connections. It's about helping out on a daily basis down to the smallest thing. We can all do something to help others. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I'm also obsessed with him.
Let's take a minute to examine that beautiful statement of masculinity, of just like, you don't have to be like a dude who runs into the war zone and gets shot at to be like a person that matters.
Right.
You can just do what it is that you can, even if it's small, and not doing anything is worse than at least doing something, no matter how small it is. That's a good message. I endorse that. I feel like that's the kind of shit that you don't hear as much as we should these days.
Use that for whatever is happening in real life, you know?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's Helge Meyer and his ghost Camaro.
Literally just the coolest name ever.
I know.
Like, Helge Meyer and his ghost Camaro.
I found him on YouTube. He has a YouTube account, and he's always leaving the most...
Does he do interviews?
Nobody comments on everyone's videos they make of him. That's why I'm
he's going to hopefully tag... He's going to...
Yeah, and so I wanted to... maybe later I'll do it, but he writes... He writes some really not unhinged, but just like very boomer responses to things. Like,
okay.
But not boomer in the bad way. Boomer in the way that's like, aw, you're trying.
You're 75 years old.
You're 75, and you are anyway, and it's sweet. That's Helge. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Yeah. No. What a interesting person who clearly deserves to have his own
movie.
Not just movie, but, I think we need to be selling those cars. I think the car needs to come to
the Peterson
Museum in LA, which, if you've never been, is a really super cool museum.
One of my favorites.
LACMA. It's a very cool museum.
Yeah.
It would fit right in.
It really
Again,
would.
Especially next to like the Mad Max cars and stuff.
Oh my
but like
gosh.
an actual, like in a DeLorean or whatever.
This guy
here's one that's in real life.
Did not mess around. He was fully prepared to die every time he went in there.
So you're saying that people are saying that he's exaggerating his story?
No, not exaggerating, but they're like, oh, you're trying to make money off your story? And he's like, yeah. I am. Like, that's not why I did it. I'd be okay
with that guy getting a little bit of cash. But yeah, that's fine. I'm like, if he did something cool, if he's like broke, like, yeah,
he didn't do it for the money. He did it because
right.
God told him to.
Listen, like you said, he's boomer trying to like exist in the year 2024.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to have a side hustle. If your brand is that I'm the post-apocalyptic Santa Claus, by all means, go ahead. I think that's a good. There are worse things to try and capitalize off of rather than trying to help women and children who are starving in a war-torn zone.
In a
everyone.
Siege city. Get over it. You think he was like, can't wait till they make a movie of this? No, dude.
Oh, you eat at restaurants? No, this guy deserves something, not you.
Right. He's got a Bible. Oh, I forgot to say that whenever he completed a mission, he would paint the edges of one page in his Bible gold. And he was trying to fill up the whole Bible.
I love this guy so much.
I love him. I go on a deep dive. There's so many videos. There's so many comments he's made on the videos that are just endearing and amazing. He comes in and like makes corrections, and he's like, "No, actually, I owe it all to the American military. I wouldn't have done any of this without them." But in like very broken English. Like,
listen, sincerely, if you do comment on this video and you do come across it, please reach out to us. 500opentabs@gmail.com.
We'd love to talk to you.
We would love to talk to you. I think our audience would love to hear from you, and just whatever insane stories you have. That would be such a treat.
I respect everything you did greatly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wonderful. Well, that was fantastic. That was a really good story. You were right. That was one of the more crazy and interesting ones.
I think it's one of my favorite things I ever. Like, I couldn't stop reading about it. I was like, up till 1. I was like, okay, I have to go to sleep. I'm not even doing anything. I'm just reading more comments and like. Anyway, the article I got was called a place called motorpunk.co.uk, and
motorpunk.co.uk,
and it was written by Steve Swanson. And it's a car club website.
Swanson, I love it.
I love how much people love cars so deeply. I learned a lot about nitrous and stuff like that. Anyway,
car people are extremely into cars.
I love them.
Okay. Funny enough, it's not too. I mean, this is sort of like the yin and yang of what you're talking about. So mine is about, and I'll explain. So this tab is it's about a dude. Playing a dude disguised as another dude.
What is that from?
It's from Tropic Thunder.
Oh,
anyway, so despite loving science fiction as a genre in film and comics, spaces which I also contribute to, sadly, my literary knowledge of science fiction is a little bit limited.
Same.
I tend to only really know like the Hall of Famers, like Asimov and Bradbury or whoever, neither of which I really like to read, to be honest with you. Like,
same.
A lot of old science fiction novels are tough for me to get through, which is not to say that they're bad. It's just harder for me to get into them in that sense.
I have a hard time holding focus on books, which sucks. I used to be able to like, zip through books, but now I'm like, I can't get through it. Anyway, go on.
I can read certain books. I find some of it just ends up being a little bit like kind of detached in the way that it's written, which again, that's fine. That's just my own personal preference, not to say it's good one way or another. But so apologies to all you sci-fi people out there. That hopefully that's not sacrilege, but I'm not familiar with the stories of today's subject, or I was not before this. However, his story is nevertheless fascinating.
Cool.
So back in the 1950s and 60s, a man named Cordwainer Smith. That's right. It's Cordwainer Smith.
Cordwainer Smith?
Cordwainer Smith.
That is a very specific, you know how people are like, I'm a Taylor, so my last name's Taylor. I'm a Smith. Cordwainers were people who like, I think made clothes or something, right?
Shoes.
I don't know. Shoes.
Yeah.
Cordwainer Smith? Oh, I'd call him Cordwainer.
Cordwainer, that's what I was telling Sarah about this last night. And she's like, Cordwainer? And I'm like, yeah, he's got a cord for a wiener.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Cordwainer Smith.
He takes it out. It's repulsive. Anyway. Everyone hated him. Cordwainer Smith.
Cordwainer Smith was revered for his thoughtful approach to the genre, earning him Hugo and Nebula nominations, as well as many devoted fans. But they were all of them deceived.
What?
For another identity was made.
Oh, nice. Nice bringing Lord of the Rings fantasy genre into this sci-fi discussion.
Cordwainer Smith was not who he claimed to be, which writing under a pseudonym isn't uncommon for writers, but Cordwainer Smith, who was born Paul Linebarger, which is an equally weird name, but
he chose the name Cordwainer?
I think to him it was just like you said. He's like, Cordwainer is somebody who like constructs shoes and shoestring and leather and stuff. So he's like, I'm like a maker of stuff. So I'm Cordwainer Smith. That was his pen name. Anyway, Paul Linebarger was a man who, when he wasn't writing science fiction, he was a man with a long history of working for the CIA.
What?
And a man whom some believe unintentionally invented the form of conspiracy theory that we grapple with today.
What? Wait, did the CIA even exist in the 50s?
I think it was sort of coming of age at that point.
Yeah. Whoa.
I know one place that the CIA went in the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
But it was like 30s and 40s, I think. Yeah. I could think of one that has...
They're kind of all over. They got their cords and everyone's wieners.
Yeah.
don't know what that means.
I don't remember the exact year that the CIA started, but it was definitely happening in the 50s. Anyway, I'm going to say this up front, that this guy is like super fascinating to me. And if anyone wants to give me money, I will make a feature documentary about him. There's so much to explore in regards to a really interesting character study, but there's also like this cross section of global politics and this like dorky world building science fiction author. Just give me money and I will make this for anyone who's listening.
What combo of person is he that makes you know, the crosshairs of all these things make this one person? Wild.
So anyway, I'll get into this and you're going to love this just right off the bat. So let's talk about Paul Linebarger. So Paul was born into a family of government service. Oh. And at the turn of the century, Paul's father, Paul Sr., was a cavalry lieutenant in the Spanish-American War.
Whoa.
His focus was Spanish law, and he was very good at it. And it even earned him a nickname from his son as the Judge. That's how he referred to his father.
The Judge. Dude, that's a great name to put in your phone when your dad calls.
The Judge is calling. Will you answer? Calling. Yeah, even when he wrote about his father, he'd always be like, the judge this or the judge that. He wasn't even like, Dad. Yeah.
I'd love to psychoanalyze that.
So this reputation earned him an appointment as one of the first U.S. judges in the Philippines, which was a newly seized American colony at this time.
Yeah.
So we're talking early 1900s. And it was there that Paul Sr. met Sun Yat-sen, which I tried to look up the exact pronunciation. It's Sun Zung-zun.
Is it China? What is it? Never mind.
He was the man who would go on to lead the revolution that overthrew the Qing dynasty and became the first provisional president of the Republic of China.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I was referencing the Qing dynasty earlier when you were talking. I was like, oh, funny enough that you were talking about nationalism.
I want to try to figure out how it's pronounced.
I watched a YouTube. It's Sun Zung-zun, I think. Sun Zung-zun. Sun Zung-zun. Anyway, he met the guy who would go on to overthrow the Qing dynasty.
Wild.
Interestingly, I don't know anything about him, about Sun Yat-sen, but he became, like I said, the first provisional president of the Republic of China. And he's somebody that is recognized both like in mainland China and in Taiwan. Oh. Like he's somebody that people are still like, he's kind of okay on everyone's books because he was the person who sort of ended the previous dynastic tradition and ushered in the modern era of China.
I love how many parallels there are with my story right here with the nationalism.
So I was like, oh, it's interesting. Yeah.
Why does it always happen? I feel like that happens a lot. Camels.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe
and alligators.
Alligator Joe Camel. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so at the time that Paul Sr. met Sun, he was still a young whippersnapper looking for support and cash from Chinese expats to lead his revolution. He was not yet the man that would do all of that. He wasn't the guy you read about in all the history books. Listen, I had to stop myself from going to read all about the Chinese Nationalist Revolution.
It's sad.
I admittedly didn't know much about it, but I knew about the Civil War a little bit, but not so much the first revolution that happened then. Anyway,
maybe that's what I know about too. I don't think I know about the... Oh, interesting.
Anyway, so that's an aside. I decided not to do that. So I was like, I'll stay focused on the actual tab and continue the story. So
good job.
Now, Hannah, much like you and young Stalin, Paul Sr. was boyfriend? Absolutely captivated.
My historical boyfriend.
I think we mentioned this on the Q&A, not in the episode.
Yeah,
but I had a
we need context.
I had a biography of young Stalin at my house, and there's a picture of him when he's younger.
So hot.
Hannah came into the house and was just like, who? Oh my God, he is so gorgeous.
He is.
Over him.
We'll put him up on the YouTube. Go look at it. Look, if he didn't go on to like cause the deaths of millions of people, it'd be different. But look, if I just look at him in a vacuum, just that one picture, I'd be like,
you're like all objectively a hottie.
Objectively, I would follow you into a revolution.
Speaking of which, Paul Sr. totally captivated by Sun. He really believed in this man.
Whoa.
Not in like a sexual way like you, but
fine. I mean, we don't know that.
That's true. There's no proof of that, as far as I know, that wasn't the case.
My fan fiction is that they...
Yeah, right. Oh, I can see some good fan fiction.
But they couldn't. They had to focus on the revolution.
So remember, he's part of like this thing. He's a judge, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's a U.S. judge in the Philippines. He meets Sun, and he's basically like, this dude is super awesome and on the level. And I want to subscribe to your newsletter, and everything you're talking about is
follow you on Instagram.
Like and subscribe. Yes, I'm super into it. He loves him.
Swipe right.
Swipe right. He believed in this man and his ambitions and his vision of how the world could, nay, should be.
Oh.
And he believes in him so much that in 1907, Paul Sr. resigned his judicial post to become Soon's legal advisor and financial backer.
Well, that's
goes all
big
in.
Time.
Yeah. This former military, serving in the military American judge is just like, that's it. This is my new life. This is what I'm going to do now.
This episode is full of idealism.
It really is. It's going to get even more.
Like core ideal views of, fascinating. Yeah. Okay.
So Paul Sr. goes on to become responsible for some of nationalist China's most circulated propaganda as a way to try and unify the people.
An American dude?
I don't think that, I didn't go too far into the history of that. So I don't know if I think he's just sort of like consulting. He's there, but he's part of like almost like the inner circle. So in June 1913, Paul Sr. sends his pregnant wife to Milwaukee so that their child would be born a natural-born American citizen and could one day maybe become president.
Maybe. President Cordwainer.
Cordwainer. And when his mother brought him back to China, so at this point they leave the Philippines, they go to China. So his mother brings back the child from China. And the child's name is Paul Myron Anthony Linebarger.
It's a lot.
And yeah, it's a long name.
It's a mouthful.
So this is now our focus is Paul Jr., like little Paul, mini Paul, whatever you want to call him. So Paul, when he gets to China, is christened Lin Ba Lo, or Forest of Incandescent Bliss.
Yeah. Wow.
As he was now the godson of Sun Yat-sen.
No!
So literally, the
serious?
president of China becomes this dude's godfather.
Dude, you know I have a Taiwanese godmother?
Do you really?
Yeah. She came to my wedding. Yeah. I don't ever talk to her, but
she's not like a president of like the country.
She's not the president of Taiwan yet.
This dude literally just like dad decides to go join the cause, and then he's like, cool, the president's your godfather now.
That is wild.
Paul Sr. was in constant service of Sun's ambitions. So, of course, mini Paul, he's like moving around a ton as a kid. He's attending more than 30 schools as they bounced around the globe. As
someone who also attended a bunch of schools, sorry for you, kid.
This was not great. It's not like he's going to all these schools and like, it's not like now where you can meet someone once when you're like backpacking in Europe and remain friends with them on Facebook for the next like 15 years.
Right.
And phones aren't even really like a super widespread thing at this age, at this time.
Not till like the 20s did they really start getting into houses.
He's seeing a lot of the world at an age during a time when that was not common, which is cool, but dude's not forming any long-term relationships.
Yeah.
Like that's just not happening with him. And on top of that, he's a sickly kid. He's getting sick a lot.
Poor kid.
Recipe for
this is a
that's
recipe.
Literally the note.
This is a recipe for an interesting life.
One more thing. At one point, I think it's when he's in boarding school in Hawaii, which is one of the many places that he's gone.
Sorry.
No, worse. Something happens. He pokes his eye out.
No,
and it gets all infected and needs to replace it with a glass one.
That is so gross. So he's a sickly, one-eyed expat who's only like 10.
Who's like, I think this is all before he's 15. Yeah, whose godfather is the president of China.
And somehow I'm remembering he goes on to write science fiction novels.
So he goes on to do what all weirdo, bedridden kids have always done throughout the history of time.
Can I guess?
He reads a lot. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say world build.
World build. That's also part of it too. Yes, but he reads a lot.
Right.
Anything and everything. And more uncommon for someone like him, like a young white American kid, he's reading Chinese classics like Journey to the West and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. He's like fully steeped in all these different things.
That's cool.
And of course, eventually he starts writing his own stories. And at age 15, he first publishes a story, and it appears in the June 1928 issue of the Adjutant.
Oh, it's a weird
like
word.
Adjudicated, I think. Published by his high school cadet corps in Washington, D.C., which again shows you like China, D.C., Hawaii, like all throughout Europe, like kid's just like seen speaking of world building, he's seen a lot of the world.
He's seen so many different kinds of people and places.
Yeah.
That's great.
Crazy by the time he's 15. So this story, the one that he writes when he's 15, he would later go on to rewrite and retcon this as part of an anthology, which I will explain later.
Cool.
By 23 years old, Paul was awarded his doctorate from Johns Hopkins in political science, which is very young.
Sorry to pause
PhD.
you again.
Yeah.
This is also very like parallel to my family.
Is it really?
My grandpa was also in the CIA, and
You never told me that.
I know.
Spoiler alert, it's come out on the podcast.
Well, he's dead, so he can't. There's no more secrets. Also, it was a really boring job. He just translated Chinese newspapers into English and then matched them up with license plates in Vietnam.
Listen, that's what they want you to know. That's what the story that they tell you.
But he was in the CIA. He was also a political scientist with an emphasis in Asian studies and Asian political relationships.
I guarantee you he knew who this guy was.
Oh, probably.
100% knew who this guy was.
And my dad, by the time my dad was 18, he'd lived in Taiwan, England, Austria. They were always everywhere because they would study abroad, and he'd just take his kids with him. So this reminds me a lot of like my dad's family, where
cool.
My dad will be like, "Oh yeah, I got that in this city in China or in Hong Kong," and I'm like, "What? When were you there?" He's like, I don't know. I was like 10.
I don't know.
Okay, Dad. Which is why
okay.
When we moved to Taiwan as a kid, my passport was filled with more stamps than I've ever had since. I was 1.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom and Dad. Anyway, so
you didn't get a chance to absorb all that culture as like a 10-month-old.
But yeah, I love hearing this because it just feels very familiar.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
it's a lot of family history to dump on you, but there you go.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. You're relating. That's good. So like I said, 23, he's got a poli-sci PhD. He's fluent in 6 languages, had seen half the world, was godson to the president of China. So it's perhaps a no shit turn of events that U.S. Army intelligence is going to come knocking. And they're like, hey, bro, Paul, we should talk, buddy.
If you can speak Chinese and it's the 50s, the CIA is coming for you.
Yeah. This is even earlier, actually. This is like 30s.
Because that's what, same with my grandpa. They're like, we need someone who's, anyway.
And remember, his dad is like the advisor. So he's
that's right.
He knows all this stuff. It's not just like he speaks Chinese because like his parents put him in like a mommy and me class with like other Chinese kids who like speak Mandarin or whatever.
He's on the inner circle.
He's in the inner circle of like what the president, he's just like learning about all this stuff through osmosis. Right. And his dad's like writing propaganda for the Chinese Revolution. Like it's insane. He's just grown up in all this shit. It's insane. Yeah. So by this point, he gets, like I said, he gets recruited by U.S. Army intelligence. And now he starts this period of his life where he's got like 2 careers going at the same time. He's an illustrator and a podcaster. Double threat.
and an author. And
that's right. And an author.
pretty much a traveling salesman. Which is what we are. We figured that out last convention. We're like, are we traveling salesmen?
100%. Yeah, we're just
yes,
like,
we
you
are.
Step on up and get a picture of a cat. You look like you got a cat. Is that why you came to CatCon? How about if I could interest you in a drawing made by the great Hannah Hillam, known throughout the Middle East as the Cat Whisperer?
Whoa. That was pretty similar. That energy you just gave was very similar to the energy you did at CatCon.
Gotta be
You're
aggressive.
Professional.
I try.
I know.
No, he's not podcasting, unfortunately.
Fine. He would though if he were alive now.
He probably would have. Yeah, he would have been like, I have some of the most interesting life experiences in the world. I'm gonna make a podcast where I swear with my friends.
Yeah.
But no, by the mid 1930s, he's got a sweet little academic career going at Duke. So he's like whatever, teaching and like assistant professing and all that, and he's writing papers. He's also publishing books about East Asia, because he's literally an expert. Mm-hmm. And he's also got this military gig going on. So he's earning a reserve commission and later going on to serve on active duty. And with a bounty of academic, military, and professional experience, Paul quickly became one of the country's foremost experts in psychological warfare. Okay,
one more thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's
back
great.
To my grandpa. So
yeah.
A quick story. He did he enrolled in the Korean War. He enlisted.
He served.
And
or enlisted, yeah.
He went to Korea. He was like 20 something, 23 or 4. He went there, and they get there, and they start waiting for their assignments. And they get to the end of the list, and he's still sitting there. And they're like, well, we don't have an assignment for you. We'll put you in propaganda. How about that?
Oh, shit.
And so my grandpa created like leaflets that they dropped all over Vietnam. Wait, really?
Oh, in Vietnam or in Korea?
Oh, no, Korea. Sorry, in Korea.
Okay, hold that thought.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
That's crazy.
Really?
Okay. Yes. Just hold it. I want to know more, but let me.
That's all I know.
Oh, okay.
I can find his memoirs.
Shit.
No.
Oh my God.
Okay, wait.
We're getting hype.
Tell me.
We're getting really excited.
Tell
okay,
me.
so becomes an expert on psychological warfare, and he's also like just super duper really hated communism and would dedicate a lot of his work to trying to destroy it and take it down. And now this is where Paul's thinking to me gets really interesting, because he recognized the US's disadvantage in the propaganda wars. And this is where he starts to sort of split from his upbringing with his dad, and he builds on new ideas brought about by people like Edward Bernays. Remember, Freud was like 5 seconds before this all happened. Like all this idea of like psychology and like how the brain worked and like repressed childhood, whatever, like that's all relatively new. Like, and even the idea of not propaganda, but like public relations and like how you interface with the public and use it and use psychology as a way to get people like to either purchase things or jump on board. Like that's brand new. That's like less than 20, 30 years old at this time, as both as a profession and as a science and as a thing that people are studying.
That's so crazy how young that is.
Yeah, it's all in its infancy. So it's brand new in the popular imagination. And Paul believed that without dogma or class hatred, American propagandists really didn't have great stories to tell to convince people to join their cause. And he saw it working for communists across the globe, spreading like wildfire. The stories were simple and they're clear and they're effective.
Yeah. And,
it's just literally like, hey, there's capital and then there's everybody else. And the real enemy here is capital. And if capital doesn't have, if they've got all, it's really clear. It's very emotional story. It's like a easy way to like get people hooked on it is sort of how, because he's thinking about the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget, his godfather was once again literally the dude that founded the party that like Mao was fighting in the Chinese Civil War. He was like, dude, communism sucks.
Wow.
We got to do something.
He was on the ground. He was like at the source. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I am loving this, by the way. I'm in heaven right now. I love this.
So he starts making the case that you can't just bombard people with whatever you want them to believe, as is the practice, or was the practice of communist propaganda at the time, i.e., you tell a lie enough times and it eventually becomes the truth. You dismantle the credibility of everyone and everything around you, so you don't believe shit. It just sort of puts you into a state of like, I don't even know what the state's called, but it puts you in like a weird state where like you're just repetition.
Right.
You just repeat the lie. It's posters, it's cult of personality, it's all that kind of stuff. And he's like, no, dude, you can't do that. And we have to differentiate ourselves from the communists if we want to succeed. And you got to have your audience in mind when you're trying to come up with propaganda. And so he's like, and again, this is the first person that has this idea. And he's like, you got to picture a dude in your head that's like, let's call him like Johnny Propaganda. And what's this dude's
prolific sci-fi writer, Johnny Propaganda.
Johnny Propaganda. So he's like, no, he's just thinking of in the audience. He's like, okay, so you got to remember like Joe the plumber or whatever. Yeah. He's just like, who's the guy you're trying to reach? His name is Johnny Propaganda. What's this dude's inner life? What does he want? What's his favorite order at IHOP? What's on his Spotify 2024 Wrapped playlist?
Us.
You got to like get into his mind. Right. What podcasts is he listening to? How often is he listening to them? He's just like, you got to create like a psychological profile of the person that you're trying to reach and really think about who they are, what their loves are, what their desires are, what their interests are. And you got to like get in there and then meet them halfway. You got to meet them where they are.
That is so crazy because like all those old magazines, the National Geographics, you can see how they didn't apply this to any advertising whatsoever. They would just have a full page with all the information about the product listed with a picture of it. Yeah. There was never any like, hey, housewives, we know you need this. It was just like, here's the info.
Yeah.
And it was never like aimed at an audience in the way that it is now, or even in the way that this sounds like it's going to be.
Yeah, and so just a quick, did you ever read anything about Edward Bernays?
No.
I think he was Freud's nephew. and he wrote, I forgot what the book is that he wrote, but basically he invented like PR and like psychological advertising.
Wild.
He's the dude that did it. And like, there's a really famous story where I can't remember who it was. It was like, I don't know, Marlboro, some cigarette company was like, oh, we're declining in sales. And like, we're trying to get women to smoke. Because like it'll like, that's a part of the audience that like, we're not capturing. So he basically like made some, like staged a parade. Bernays did. He like staged a parade and then like hired these like actresses to come like take their shirts off and like storm the parade and like smoke cigarettes. And then he had like some newspaper guy like take pictures of it. And they're like,
genius,
defiant women smoking cigarettes and like whatever, like disrupting this parade and wearing their bra. And then like cigarette sales spiked because suddenly the association with cigarettes was about how like, oh, it's like you don't do what your man tells you. You
women's
smoke cigarettes.
liberation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he's just sort of capitalizing off of it. I think also, if I'm not mistaken, once again, the Nazis like were like, dude, Edward Bernays has got some interesting writing.
Great.
And they used a lot of that. Anyway, that's an aside.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a relatively new idea at this point. So Paul is like, we need to incorporate this into propaganda. But kind of to your point, it sounds insane, right? Because it's still, we're talking about propaganda and we're talking about overthrowing countries. But like, you know, I'm by no means an expert on this guy, but I get the sense that he's sort of an idealist.
Yeah.
I don't think that it was like this thing where he's like, I want to murder people and like exploit resources from. I think he's like, he's raised in this mentality, in this sort of childhood of like, he's an idealist. Like he's seen this man who's like, I'm going to go back and like consolidate China and make it this thing because we don't believe in like this former like I think Paul, he really believes in sort of the.
If you think about like other inventors, like even Einstein, like with the splitting of the atom, he was like, I was just trying to figure it out, and now everyone's killing each other with it.
right.
It's similar. I feel like it's similar to that, where it's like, oh, I didn't expect this to. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, this is so insane to even say, but this dude literally, in terms of how to make psychological warfare more pointed, is like, we need to really use empathy for this, which, like I said, just sounds nuts, but that's literally what he's talking about.
Okay, guys, I know it's uncomfortable to care about others, but we have to pretend for a minute.
He's like, if you understand your audience, they will respect you, and that's how we win hearts and minds. That's like his big sort of thing that he says. Again, totally twisted and insane and like so much to unpack. But that is the broad strokes of what he's sort of fighting for. Of course, after we drop the bombs and effectively end the reign of the Japanese Empire in 1945, East Asia suddenly becomes vulnerable to the intervention of communist regimes.
Yes.
Very famously. So in the late 1940s, Paul goes on this like long road trip, and he's tending to one communist insurgency after the next. And first he's like in Malaysia. He ran psychological warfare operations in support of the British forces fighting Chinese-led communist guerrillas. Then he goes to advise anti-communist efforts in Thailand, the Philippines, and in Indonesia. He's going all over the place. And occasionally he's even hopping back into China to help the nationalists from losing to the CCP, because he's like, you know, that's when the Chinese Civil War is happening. And he's just like, no, I got to go in and pop. He's doing a lot of Southwest flights throughout all of East Asia, like bouncing back and forth.
Good airline. Free suitcases. Bring
bring
whatever he wants.
All of his propaganda stuff. And somehow between all of those overseas missions, he moved from Duke to the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. And in 1948, literally writes the book on psychological warfare titled, you want to take a guess?
Psychological Warfare.
That's correct.
Yeah!
Literally wrote the book called Psychological Warfare.
I'm pretty sure that book is floating around one of my family members' houses.
It's still referenced today.
Yeah, I've seen that book.
It's an important book. Obviously, I didn't have the time to read such a dense, huge book in time for this. But I know it's important, and I know that psychological warfare is a big thing. So going back to your pamphlets.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So as an aside, from 1950 to 1952, Paul was deployed to Korea.
Oh my gosh.
Late in the conflict, when Chinese soldiers began to surrender, they were approaching American troops with weapons still in hand, because dropping them was considered to be dishonorable.
Oh.
So they wanted to give up. They were like, we surrender, but they weren't putting their guns down because culturally that was too much.
Not a thing, yeah.
And American soldiers, on the other hand, were like, these Chinese soldiers are walking towards us with their weapons.
Right.
We're going to shoot them. And so they were killing all these Chinese dudes who were surrendering.
Oh.
And it wasn't good. So Linebarger met with Chinese prisoners to devise a series of Chinese words a soldier could yell when he wished to surrender. Culturally acceptable words like love, virtue, and humanity that did not insult the soldier's honor, but when said together were phonetically similar to the English words I surrender.
What? Whoa, what? Okay, that's genius. That's genius.
Thinking outside that's what I'm saying. I'm like, that's serious, like that's big brain shit.
That saved a lot of lives. And
not by dropping a goddamn bomb on top of everybody. It's like
teach him a lesson. No, yeah, that was
he's like, yeah, how about we meet them halfway and like come up with how about we do like the slightest bit of work to understand these people.
Man, World War II could have ended differently.
So pamphlets with explicit surrender instructions were dropped behind enemy lines, and the number of botched surrender attempts decreased significantly.
Okay, those were the exact years he was there.
Your grandfather was probably dropping those pamphlets. He was in charge of that.
I'm having a moment.
That's so cool.
What? Okay. My mind is a little bit blown right now. I'm having a moment.
He's I just thought it was such an interesting approach to, again, psychological warfare.
Yeah.
He's a cool dude.
And smart.
Anyway, smart. Yeah. Very much like he's a very, as you can tell, he's, as you will learn, he's a prolific not prolific. He's a very creative thinker. So, and after Korea, he heads back to Johns Hopkins to resume his teaching and researching duties. Because remember, he's sick a lot. Remember, he was like, he's a sickly kid. He's not this dude who's like ripped and like in super good shape. He's sort of in and out of whatever. He's too busy using his brain so that his body can't necessarily catch up as much. He can't just keep going into the jungle like, what is it, God's Rambo.
God's Rambo.
Yeah. He's not he can't keep fighting revolutionaries and like being in the jungle and stuff. He needs to rest.
He needs to rest his frail body so his big brain can think of more ways to not kill so many Chinese people.
Yes. And remember, he needs rest. And he's like us. He cannot sit still.
Oh.
So it's when he's bedridden back home, which was very often, that this insanely prolific man begins a new hobby. After writing all these other books and like propaganda stuff,
he
starts another
statecraft
thing.
And politics. Yeah.
He starts a new hobby, which is writing science fiction stories.
What in the world? So like he's just like this genius, like politician, like analyst or whatever, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna write about alien boobs. Because that's what they all were.
Can't sit still.
Can't sit. Well, good. Look, I deeply relate to that. Deeply. Like, even if I like what I'm doing, I'm still like, gotta have something else, What's next? Yeah. Wow.
Speaking of what's next, that's where I'm going to leave this in next week.
I knew it was a two-parter, and that still really bummed me out.
I was like, I could brush over, just sort of do a greatest hits of like some of the stuff, but I was like starting to read some of the bits of the stories, and I was like, these seem like there's quite a lot to unpack here, and sort of how they tie into his. I was like, that's why I was saying at the beginning, I'm like, oh, this should be a feature doc at the very least, if not like a thick biography. And I don't say that like, flippantly. I feel like there's a substantial amount of stuff to unpack with this man's life and his personal experiences and how they play into his work. So I actually did something I haven't done before for this show, which is I ordered a copy of like a best of collection of his short stories.
Awesome.
I am probably digging myself into a hole that I won't be able to fulfill by the next time we record, but I'm going to try to read at least some of the bigger ones that are like a little bit more prominent and they're famous. I've already sort of I've glanced at sort of like the overviews of them, and they're really strange. Ooh. They're not the science fiction. They're not like Asimov or any of those guys. It's like a very different form of storytelling, which is why I was so interested in it.
It makes sense. He has a very different upbringing and background.
Yeah. And I think the whole idea of anyway, whatever, you know what? I'm not going to give it away in terms of like what I think was happening there, but I think next week I'm going to try to explain some of those stories and sort of talk about how I think they play into his broader life. But he's genuinely like this guy is fascinating, and I don't know anything about him, and I hadn't heard anything about him, and I think there's a case to be made about there's a bigger story here. Anyway, so
I love characters
That's my
like
tab.
this that are like you see where they are in every era, and how you know what I mean. Like he's just a weird connector of so many things that you wouldn't expect. The godson of the president of China, who invented modern psychological warfare, and then got sick and wrote sci-fi.
Yeah. Who was actually, it seems like a kind-hearted idealist
seems
from
like
all accounts.
a nice dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the funny thing though, in terms of like a character study, right? Like hearing those things, you'd be like, oh, this guy's like intense and like wants to overthrow government.
No.
Seems like he just was this very like, no, it's like, you know, we should help people by like not killing. Yeah, he's like a nerd for sure.
Wow.
Anyway, I'll get more into it next week.
What a cool story. I'm very excited. I'm also still kind of reeling from the family connection. I can't quite get over that.
That's awesome.
There's a chance he maybe came across him in
Excellent.
his time.
Awesome.
Woo.
Anyway,
Thank
that
you.
is my tab. Why don't we go ahead and close up our windows? I'm going to close, obviously not all of them because I have to continue. But what are you thinking for, I think it should be like the sound of a Camaro with like gunshots going after it. That doesn't really sound like closing anything, but I just want that.
Yeah, I want that. We're not going to, well, it'll just run over the tabs. It'll peel out. Like, and then run away, and then there's like distant gunshots.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. You want to count us down?
Yeah. Oh, I have to go find the tabs. Just a minute. Okay, 3, 2, 1. That was my car impression. Close.
All right, moving on to listener emails.
Yeah.
I believe you're up first.
I am up first. Okay, this is from Felix in Austria. Hey, Hannah and Kaveh. Greetings all the way from Vienna, Austria. Loving the pod.
Love Vienna.
Here's a post about... Have you been? I've never been.
Oh, it's a beautiful city.
Really?
It's beautiful. It's like one of the cleanest cities I've ever been to.
Ooh.
Yeah, Vienna's gorgeous.
Gotta go. Here's a post about being buried in a bog that I tried sending Hannah on Instagram without success. And it's just a picture of like what looks like melted puddle of human remains. I'll put it up. But anyway, as for listener tab contributions, here is my tab. What's the worst that could happen picking the wrong song at karaoke night? Angry stares, disgusted faces, maybe a grunt or a sigh. Wrong. Filipinos take their karaoke very seriously. It's their national pastime, many passionate hobbyist singers being excellent at it. For performers and audience alike, following a karaoke etiquette is expected. Failing that can elicit strong reactions from karaoke enjoyers. In rare cases, those reactions can get really out of hand.
Uh-oh.
In the so-called My Way killings between 2002...
Oh, no.
Have you heard of these? These are...
No. For like Frank Sinatra, My Way?
Yes. This is absurd. In the so-called My Way killings between 2002 and 2012, more than 10 people were reportedly killed in connection to singing Frank Sinatra's song My Way. So there's this whole crazy... I've read about this before where they were like, it would incense people so much that they'd sing it wrong, and then the song itself that they would like literally murder each other.
Dear Lord.
Other countries aren't immune to karaoke-related rage, though. Assault and even killings have been reported in other countries. Some examples are listed on the wiki page above. Looking forward to the episode every week. Certainly looking differently at dams, barbed wire, and whales these days. Keeping it Josie in Austria, Felix. Yeah, the My Way killings.
Good day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie. Do you remember from Dumb and Dumber?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. It's a pop culture reference, you remember. Yep. This is why I never do karaoke, is because I don't want to get killed.
I don't want to die in that way.
Yeah, in that way.
I did karaoke at Chicago Comic-Con, and it was the first time I ever enjoyed it.
What did you sing? My Way?
No, I sang...
No, you sang the Limp Bizkit version of My Way. My Way or the Highway.
No, I sang Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash.
Okay.
And everyone made fun. Everyone was like, what is this? And I'm like, you know what it is.
They didn't know Should I Stay or Should I Go?
They knew, but they were all like, oh, it was like kind of like a different path. Like there was a lot of like pop and like K-pop and stuff like that. So anyway.
You were with young people. That was the problem.
I was with like people in their 20s.
Yeah.
I was like,
can't
wow,
karaoke with people in their 20s and be like, I don't know what any of these songs are.
Yeah. No. Anyway, your turn.
Cool. All right, moving on. Listener email number 2 is from Dustin. Is Dustin?
I think I know. Says,
hey, Hannah. Not sure if this is you or Kava reading this. Yeah. Not sure if this is you or Kava reading this, but Hannah was one of my best friends back in high school.
Yes, we were. We were scene partners. We both, you know, I said I won that Shakespeare competition. No, I got second place. He was the other. He and I both.
He also is good at. What did Miles say? You're good at talking Shakespeare.
He's also good at talking Shakespeare.
Dustin, the championship talking Shakespeare.
Yeah. I met Dustin when I was in 6th grade and I first moved back to Utah, and we would just go jump on the trampoline next door all day.
That sounds like fun.
Yep.
Sadly, we lost touch and haven't spoken in many years, but I love your podcast and I love seeing you succeed and doing something that you love and are clearly so good at. Anyways, I wanted to share one of my tabs. Just quick note, no one is succeeding here, Dustin.
No, dude, we're scraping, we're scraping by. But if you want to go join the Patreon,
yeah, you can help us succeed so that Dustin didn't make liars out of us.
I feel icky asking one of my oldest friends to go give me money on Patreon. Okay.
I love archaeology, and I read lots of stuff about it and have probably watched way too many documentaries about it. One that I have read about in many different places is King Tut's phallus. When King Tut was first discovered, he was found to be mummified with an erect penis.
Hey, look, why not? You know?
This was documented with pictures during the excavation in 1922. Later on, the penis disappeared.
Yeah, it did.
And no one seemed to know where it went. One theory is that Howard Carter, the man who found him, had accidentally broken it off, and it was taken by workers and sold on the black market. But in 2005, a team performed a CT scan of the mummy, and they lifted it out of the sarcophagus. They found the penis underneath.
Oh.
It truly had been broken off, but had just fallen below instead of being stolen, which, you know, sometimes it happens. Your penis falls off and you're just like, it's in the couch cushions. You
sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, you got to dig in, find some change, the remote, your broken off dick.
Broken off mummified penis. You just toss it aside.
Listen, don't eat it. That's all I'm going to say.
Don't eat it.
No. I know that that there have been people who have done that. Archaeologists now think that the reason he was mummified with an erect penis was in response to his heretic father, Akhenaten. Do you know how to say this?
Where is it? Let's see.
Akhenaten. Sorry, I didn't do this in advance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Akhenaten, I think.
Akhenaten, during his reign as pharaoh, had abolished the long-held religion of Egypt and changed it to a monotheistic religion to worship the Aten, the sun disk. He was hated by the Egyptian people for this, and then he died. And King Tut returned the religion back in order to gain favor from the people. The god Osiris was one of the primary gods in Egypt and is the god of mummification as well as fertility. Osiris is depicted with green skin because he died and was the first being to be mummified.
Whoa.
Tut was also said to have been found covered in a resin that was black and made from Nile sediment that may have initially been green.
Oh.
It is thought that Tut being buried green and with an erect penis was done to connect him with Osiris and make a symbol of his return to the old religion.
So he's like cosplaying in his grave.
Apparently, yeah. Tut is the only known mummy to be buried with an erect penis. Anyway, sorry for using the term erect penis so much. If you don't want to use this story on the show, I totally understand. Haha. Hannah, hope you're doing well. You're awesome, Dustin. And Dustin includes the link.
Thanks, Dustin. Thank you. We got to reconnect.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to do the Buster Bluth with an erect penis. Yeah.
How does he say it so like accusatory and breathlessly at the same time?
So good.
Oh, I love him.
My father came back from a trip with a statue with an erect penis. Anyway, if you have an email that you'd like to submit to us, please go ahead. Please, penis. Please send us an email at 500opentabs@gmail.com. That's 500. Give us a brief explanation of what your tab is about. Please, emphasis on the brief. No more than a couple sentences, ideally.
Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't know that.
I mean, sometimes they get long, and if they don't qualify for a full tab, I feel bad because I'm like, okay, well, we want to use some of these, but we need more of a summary of them sometimes. Anyway, which not to say we don't appreciate the longer ones. They're good. They're just like, we can't read them all online because they're too long. Anyway, send us a summary, send us your link, and of course, let us know where you're from. And what do we got coming up? We got a bunch of stuff happening. Also, we are interested in still taking voicemail submissions.
Yeah.
Try to keep it to under a minute. We'd love to hear more voices other than the ones in our own head. But Hannah, why don't you tell them, this is like end of September.
Yeah.
So we got New York Comic Con coming up. That's where we're going to be. 17th
through the 20th, I want to say.
Yeah.
We'll have a table at C44. No, that was last year. Never mind.
Somewhere.
We'll be at New York Comic Con. We'll be sharing a table. And
in Artist Alley.
And you got to come say hi. We'll be insane, most likely.
As always.
And then I also have my book. Oh, and my book is coming out October 8th. And there's a signing at Book Passage in San Francisco, and also at Books Inc. in Palo Alto on the 8th and the 9th. And then at Vroman's in Pasadena on the 29th.
You're also doing a signing at New York Comic Con, am I mistaken?
Yes, at the Comic Con itself, at the Hachette booth, the book in the writer's block area, I think. And then in Salt Lake, I have a signing at the King's English on the 1st of November, and the 26th of October, I'm doing this all out of order. 26th of October, I'm going to be at Powell's in Portland, Oregon. So,
as such, Hannah's going to be on the road because she's too cool for us, and she's going to be unable to record a couple of episodes. So we're going to have a couple of guests filling in for her for a couple of them. So what did I say earlier? I was like, keep your ears unplugged, uncorked, and your eyes peeled. We got some fun guests coming on. There's a couple of them that we've already figured out. I'm excited about them. I think you guys are going to get a big kick out of them. But in the meantime, please, go sign up for the Patreon. It helps us.
Yeah.
Go sign up and subscribe to the YouTube. That really helps us. Please, rate, rank, like, subscribe, whatever, all that crap that we're supposed to say.
You know what to do. You've been around. Just go it everywhere and subscribe everywhere.
Subscribe everywhere. Go sign up for the Discord, which is growing bigger by the day.
It's fun over there.
It's fun over there. And of course, thank you, Alyssa, as always.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Putting an episode together for us. Anything else you wanted to...
I was going to say... Did you already say Patreon?
We did say Patreon, but we can say it again. Patreon, we got one.
Patreon, there's lots of extra clips on there. And I'll be adding more of like things we do talk about but don't put in the episode. Riffing, etc. So... Yeah.
Listen, there's plenty of ways for you to continue enjoying our company when you're not just listening to this podcast, unfortunately for you guys.
Wow.
So keep it going.
We've tricked them.
Yeah. I think that's it. All that's left to say is Secundus Nixon shat here 5 times.
And I'm going to say Secundus Nixon shat here 3 times because that is the original.
That's true. That is the original.
5 times sounds better.
It does. It's like 500 open tabs, 500 open Secundus
shits. Nixon shat here 500 times.
500 open times.
Yeah! Yes, there it is.
Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Hannah, for your tab. Salute to the cool people we talked about. Yeah.